Fox 45 News, here's another report of a heated interaction with squeegee kids. This time it involves the federal judge overseeing Baltimore Police Department's consent decree.
Baltimore squeegee workers are a nuisance, and they are in some cases a danger to public safety.
What we're learning about the case and the dangerous trend on the corner where it happened. A federal judge finds a Baltimore man used fabricated evidence to win his freedom. Why the case is casting a shadow of doubt on the city state's attorney's office. A Baltimore teen is scheduled to appear in court this week, charged with killing a 17-year-old football player outside Mervo High School. Project Baltimore examines debate over whether school police officers should be armed inside of buildings.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
I'm Mary Bubala. Fox 45's relentless coverage of the squeegee kid problem continues tonight. The chief district judge who oversees the city's consent decree called the police over a heated exchange with squeegee kids.
During a consent decree hearing in August, Judge James Bradar spoke about squeegee kids. He disagrees with the mayor's assertion that squeegeeing is protected speech.
He is not the only one to push back on that idea lately. The city's likely next top prosecutor is as well.
We have team coverage tonight. Mackenzie Frost has a closer look at this disagreement between Ivan Bates and Mayor Brandon Scott.
But we're going to begin with Keith Daniels and what happened in this latest incident with the chief district judge. Keith?
Well, Mary and Kai, police say the the two squeegee kids allegedly involved in this case are two men in their 20s. And tonight, again, squeegee workers accused of harassing a motorist, this time a judge. At the corner of Mount Royal Terrace and North Avenue, an intersection usually busy with squeegee kids. But on this day, rainy weather cleared the corner of the young workers who wash windows for tips. But Sunday afternoon, squeegee kids and a judge converge. According to a police report, Judge James Bradar, who's overseeing the consent decree aimed at rehabilitating the Baltimore Police Department after years of civil rights violations, claims he was harassed by the squeegee kids. He and his wife stopped at the intersection when they were approached by two men. Bradar told police that the young men refused to back away when told not to wash his windows. According to the report, that's when the squeegee kids wrote "racist" in soap suds on the car window, then gave the couple the middle finger and spat on the car. Bradar called police. Sean Kennedy,
The squeegee workers are absolutely a nuisance.
Of the Maryland Public Policy Institute, says while the squeegee kids may be notorious for being a nuisance for some, even violently dangerous in some instances, Kennedy calls the judge's response problematic at best.
This judge is the one overseeing the consent decree. It's just somewhat surprising that he thinks that him being harassed is worthy of police response, while so many other crimes, so many other police enforcement activities are being hampered under his watch.
The incident first reported by the Baltimore Banner. The judge reported no damage done to his vehicle, no assault. Still, according to the police report, two officers responded. The squeegee workers, given a warning, told to, quote, cease further squeegee-related activity at the location.
These squeegee workers targeted a high-profile individual who asked for special treatment, and it was heartening to see that BPD didn't intervene here and do anything more than they would have done for any other citizen, which is zilch.
Well, a spokesperson for the judge confirmed the incident, but declined to comment. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. Fox 45 News has heard of several squeegee-related incidents at that very same intersection, Mount Royal Terrace and North Avenue. According to Baltimore police, there have been more than 600 squeegee-related calls for service between July 1st and early October across the city. From September 13th through the first half of October 5th, fewer than a month or less than a month, there were 37 squeegee-related calls for service to that intersection.
Laws are in place, as we have told you many times, to keep squeegee kids out of intersection. One law states a person can't stand in a roadway to solicit a ride, employment, or business from a driver. Again, we've told you about this many times. Another statute targets aggressive soliciting, defined by actions like intentionally blocking a driver or using obscene language and intimidation. And while Mayor Brandon Scott says he will not enforce those laws, the city's likely next state's attorney disagrees. In an exclusive interview with Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost, Ivan Bates says he will prosecute squeegee kids if he has to after a warning.
Ivan Bates says that he and Mayor Brandon Scott see eye to eye on some things, like addressing the violent crime crisis in Baltimore, but they differ on other issues, especially when it comes to how to handle the squeegee kids, at least for now. In the last couple of days, Mayor Brandon Scott and his team were refusing to answer our questions about it. Up and down President Street.
I understand the want, the desire, the need for, quote unquote, the hustle, the legal hustle, the work. What we need to do is we need to take that enthusiasm, we need to take that entrepreneurial spirit, we need to place it in a different manner.
Off I-83 and North and Mount Royal Avenues.
And that's why, I think so many of us are looking at the mayor and the mayor's office to do that.
Squeegee kids are like a fixture in Charm City, but Baltimore's likely next top prosecutor, Ivan Bates, doesn't see anything charming about them.
I have been clear. I have not changed my stance. I understand, but they can't be there. It's not safe for the squeegee workers. It's not safe for the citizens. My job is to enforce the law. Stepping off that sidewalk, going in and out of traffic is illegal. And as far as I'm concerned, we cannot do that.
The mayor's office says what these kids are doing when they dash between cars when the lights turn red is panhandling. And because of a U.S. Supreme Court ruling, that's protected speech.
I understand, however, on the law, I disagree. To me, there's a difference of panhandling, holding a sign very quietly in an area, not going in and out of traffic.
Right.
Going in and out of traffic is an action. Therefore, I believe that action is illegal.
Bates says he wants to wait and see what recommendations come from the Mayor's Squeegee Collaborative, a group the mayor launched after 48-year-old Timothy Reynolds was gunned down by a squeegee worker following Reynolds approaching the group with a baseball bat.
Well, first, let me hear what they have to say. They may say that they need to leave, and we're going to direct them into this direction.
Do you think that will happen, though? The mayor's been pretty clear that he doesn't want to clear the corners.
Well, I don't necessarily view it as clearing the corners. I view it as enforcing the law. They're not supposed to be on the corners in the first place to clear them. So I'm going to be positive and say yes.
Okay. We'll see. Let's schedule another interview for when those recommendations come out, and then we'll chat.
Yes, ma'am.
Friday, Fox 45 News sent questions to Mayor Brandon Scott's office asking, does Mayor Scott agree with Bates on enforcing low-level offenses? Will Mayor Scott allow Baltimore police to enforce the squeegee-related laws that are on the books? After going back and forth, the mayor's team refusing to answer the questions. Monday, Fox 45 News resending the questions, but again, a refusal to answer. And our phone call?
At the tone.
Unanswered by the mayor's team. Meanwhile, squeegee kids continue to stand on the corners, and laws prohibiting them are going unenforced. Mayor Scott's office says that those squeegee collaborative recommendations should be released to the public sometime by the end of fall. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, Ivan Bates also talked about concerns about staffing within the city state's attorney's office. Fox 45 News has found the office is down dozens of prosecutors, something Bates says is a top priority for him.
People need the opportunity to really put 100% effort into the case, because that individual who was murdered deserves that. So I need to find a way to think outside the box. I would love to have some retired homicide prosecutors. I'd love to be able to bring them in, maybe 1 or 2 cases, to lighten the load just a little bit.
Well, back in June, a Baltimore judge said those overstaffing problems led to egregious failures in a case against 26 correctional officers working in Baltimore City jails. All charges in that case would eventually be dropped. Now, more questions from another judge regarding the city state's attorney's office. The judge says a man used fabricated evidence to win his freedom in 2018. Jeff Abel joins us live right now with a closer look at that judge's findings. Jeff?
Well, the information does come from a federal judge who dismissed the man's civil lawsuit against the city and who raised serious questions about investigations at the state's attorney's office. How deep do prosecutors go before declaring an inmate innocent?
Oh, there he is. Oh, there he is, guys.
It was 4 years ago when Jerome Johnson walked out of the courthouse a free man. He had spent 30 years in prison for murder, but prosecutors from the state's attorney's office revealed he'd been wrongly accused and asked the court to set him free.
I would like to thank everybody that participated in the investigation. Also, would like to thank Mr. Marilyn Mosey for bringing the integrity unit to the state's house.
So on behalf of the criminal justice system, I must tell you I apologize to you and your family for the pain that you've endured because of this wrongful conviction.
After his release, Johnson slapped the city with a federal lawsuit accusing the police department of misconduct and asking for millions in damages. But in a decision today, the federal judge dismissed Johnson's lawsuit, saying his accusations have a lot of smoke but no fire. In fact, the judge ruled that Johnson had fabricated at least 2 affidavits in the case. One of them was used to convince prosecutors of his innocence. The affidavit is a forgery, the judge wrote, and the plaintiff's claim that he did not know the falsity of it rings hollow. The judge also found prosecutors had made other conclusions in the case, which the actual evidence did not support. Johnson is one of 11 men now exonerated by the state's attorney's conviction integrity unit. Last year, a federal judge threw out a civil lawsuit filed by another exonerated defendant, Tony DeWitt, determining that it, too, was based on forged evidence and witness intimidation.
Are my clients confident that this demonstrates innocence? No, they're not, because they still have questions about innocence.
The questions come after last week's dismissal of the murder conviction of Adnan Syed. The same prosecutors cite new evidence which proves his innocence. However, the attorney representing the victim's family in the case insists victims no longer have a voice.
What it feels like from a layperson's perspective is I've had this lawyer for 23 years, the state's attorney, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, they're no longer my attorney, and they're acting in ways that I don't perceive to be align with me, and I don't understand why.
Now, in regards to the dismissal of the Jerome Johnson civil case, a city spokeswoman writes tonight in a statement that while cases like this are difficult, it is important to remember that the decision of the state's attorney, or any prosecutor for that matter, to vacate a conviction does not equate to civil liability on the part of the BPD or the city. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. Here's our question of the day. Who do you trust to get violent crime under control in Baltimore? Ivan Bates, Mayor Scott, Police Commissioner Harrison, none of the above or all of the above. So far, 59% of those who voted say Ivan Bates. We still want to hear from more of you. Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
The big chill beginning to move in. Temperatures in the 50s, even some 40s popping up at Columbia after highs at 71 this afternoon. We're running 7 degrees lower than 24 hours ago here in Baltimore, 12 degrees down at Cumberland, and we're in the 30s to near 40. By early tomorrow morning, a total change in seasons. Break out the heavy jackets and the heaters. Eastern Shore, too, all the way back to Gaithersburg as well as Frederick. And there could even be some flurries in the forecast. I'm going to track how close they get to your neighborhood on the Future Scan hour by hour in a couple of minutes.
Still ahead on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight. After a few weeks of relative peace, deadly crime is back on the rise in Baltimore. Fox 45 News examines what could be behind the uptick. Baltimore City voters will have a say in how long elected leaders can serve in office. We take a closer look at the debate in Baltimore and across the country. Well, the debate over whether Baltimore City school resource officers should be armed in buildings has reemerged. Project Baltimore is demanding answers as the 17-year-old accused of killing a Merville High School student prepares for his day in court.
A Baltimore teen is scheduled to appear in court this week, charged with killing a 17-year-old football player outside a city high school.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, the brazen shooting has renewed the debate over whether school police officers should be armed inside school buildings.
School police. They're on the parking lot and they need a medic.
It was a shooting that claimed the life of 17-year-old Jeremiah Brogdon, gunned down outside Mervo High School.
We put out a citywide broadcast where we had students everywhere.
Police say it was a cold-blooded murder, which could have ended very differently if it happened just 19 minutes earlier.
Our police officers don't sign up to die.
Sergeant Clyde Boatwright is a city schools police officer and FOP president.
If he just killed one person, he'll kill another.
Boatwright says the shooter ran from the scene but was quickly apprehended for one reason, because the murder happened at 2:54 in the afternoon, 19 minutes after dismissal, when school police were armed.
So if you don't have the tools to stop him, why chase him? There's no expectation to chase an armed person and you're not armed.
Right now, under state law, Baltimore City is the only school police force in Maryland not allowed to carry guns in school during the school day. Their firearms are locked away until after dismissal. Had Brogdon been shot 19 minutes earlier, the police officers who responded would likely have been unarmed. And Boatwright says that means they would have been less likely to chase after a suspect who is armed, because it's too dangerous.
The suspect would have had the time he needed to get away. The officer would have had to go to a secure location, retrieve the firearm, and then respond back to the active threat.
Project Baltimore has learned the suspect in that shooting is 17-year-old Nazad Daniels, a student at Achievement Academy at Harbor City High School. He is charged with first-degree murder. Last school year, 15 guns were confiscated inside Baltimore City schools, a record amount according to Boatwright. 2 guns have already been confiscated this school year. And we've seen a number of violent incidents in recent years. But as concerns over violence appear to be growing, the police force is shrinking. According to city schools, the police force had more than 100 employees in 2016. That number has dropped every year since. It currently has 78 active employees to protect about 160 schools.
The numbers of active officers is the lowest that has been under my tenure since I've been there for 20 years.
Between a shortage of qualified candidates and poor retention, Boatwright says the police department is stretched too thin.
So, Chris, what I would say to you, by the way, good morning. Good to see you.
Project Baltimore caught up with City School CEO Dr. Sonia Santelises at a recent press conference, where we asked her about the shortage of police officers. Does that concern you?
I will say we have about 5 to 7 vacancies right now, which for us is absolutely felt. We've talked about with FOP in terms of negotiations around salary and other incentives we can build in to recruit.
Baltimore City Schools told Project Baltimore there are actually 11 vacancies. Since 2019, the department has been allocated 89 employees, again, for roughly 160 schools. And remember, those employees under state law are not armed while in school. In 2018, after a shooting at a Baltimore high school, the city school board recommended lawmakers change the law and allow city schools police to carry guns at all times. But the issue was never voted on in Annapolis. And school CEO Dr. Sonia Santelises has never taken a public stance on the topic.
Do you believe that school police officers should be armed inside of these new schools or any school?
One, we know that that's a legislative issue. What I have said and gone on record as saying is that we have one of the best school police forces in the nation. My job is to make sure that our school police have what they need to be effective.
But do you have an opinion? This can be a matter of life and death.
If you want to go out to coffee and talk about it, Chris, we can, but I'm standing here right now as the Chief Executive Officer of Baltimore City Public Schools. And that's been my position, that either way the legislature goes, we are prepared to continue to work to keep young people in school safe.
Lawmakers will reconvene in Annapolis in January. But as of now, there are no bills addressing whether school police should be armed. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Well, new tonight, a University of Baltimore student is getting a lot of attention on TikTok, saying the school is not doing enough to protect her and the campus after she says another student threatened her with a gun. Now, Fox 45 News found court records which show the suspect is facing several charges, including assault, stalking, and possessing a handgun. In her video, which was posted yesterday, the student says the university did send a message out to students about the incident, but did not include that the suspect, according to her, is also a student. Again, it's not clear whether the suspect is a student. We're reaching out to the university now for some comment. The university tells us they received our questions and they are working on a response.
Well, the pandemic has been a game changer in the workforce, getting employees used to non-traditional ways of working. How likely a 4-day work week is for the United States.
And we've got a couple of flurries. Yes, I said it. And sprinkles that potentially could be in the forecast. We're tracking them right now on the future scan. Rain from tonight moves out by early tomorrow morning. But take a look tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, especially well south. See some of those little green blobs? Yep, those could be a couple of flakes that are mixed in there as well. Most anywhere across the area. A couple of chilly days on the way. I'm going to let you know if it releases in time for the Ravens game. We got a brand new foliage report up in my Weather Authority forecast.
The pandemic really has been a game changer in the workforce as more companies embrace non-traditional policies to attract and also keep workers.
Yeah, keeping is the key there. The National Desk's Angela Brown reports.
Before becoming president, Richard Nixon forecasting in 1956 four-day work week as the future. Captured in this article from the New York Times, it turns out the future is 2022, with nonprofits like 4-Day Week Global leading the charge.
One thing that's certainly been a game changer in terms of moving this from something that was still quite a niche idea a few years ago to something that's much more mainstream now, at the very least, has been the pandemic.
4-Day Week Global operating a 6-month pilot program in the UK. More than 70 companies, over 3,300 employees, all working a 4-day work week.
I absolutely believe that a 4-day work week can be the golden handcuffs that keep your good people.
Career specialist Julie Balke is tracking the UK pilot program right here in the U.S. 4-Week Global just releasing this update. 41 companies responding to their survey. 88% say the 4-day work week is working well for their business.
They have time to get their doctor's appointments in, to exercise, to pursue hobbies, to be more mentally ready to work hard the other 4 days.
But some companies are leery. Entrepreneur listing some possible drawbacks, including customer service availability, scheduling issues, increased pressure on employees to get work done in 4 days.
But in the majority of situations, we're talking about employees moving to a 4-day work week, but devising rosters and schedules that ensure that you've got adequate coverage so that the business can continue to operate on a 5-day basis.
The 6-month trial is halfway complete in the UK. Other results indicate 46% of respondents say their business productivity has maintained around the same level, while 34% report that it has improved slightly, and 15% say it has improved significantly. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
It's been a violent few days in Baltimore. The city's murder rate is past where it was last year. What some experts say is behind this surge.
Hundreds of lawmakers trying to keep their seats here on the Hill this November, raising the age-old debate over term limits. I'm Scott Thuman in Washington with both sides coming up.
Our top story at 10:30, a violent few days in Baltimore has the city's murder rate back up above last year's after the relative peace we saw in September.
The murder rate had briefly dipped below last year's numbers. September saw the fewest number of murders the city has reported in years. At the time, Fox 45 News questioned the new deputy mayor for public safety about the trend, and he touted the mayor's crime plan.
Today, Baltimore is one homicide under last year. We started the month at, I believe, 52 shootings, non-fatal. Today we're at 38 maybe, so there's a reduction. I base how I view things on the data, and that data says that we're going in the right direction.
Is one homicide fewer, though, really something to praise?
One homicide fewer means we're going the right way. Imagine if I was saying we're plus 22 or 20, whatever it was when I started. We're trending in the right direction.
Well, now the question is, will Deputy Mayor Barksdale continue to take responsibility for the crime trend now that it seems to be going up again?
Fox 45's Alexa Ashwell has a closer look at the latest deadly violence.
The weekend violence already bleeding into the week. According to Baltimore police, a man was shot here on Russell Street, right on the sidewalk, just across the street from Horseshoe Casino and not far from M&T Bank Stadium. The weekend off to a violent start in Baltimore. 2 people were shot in Latrobe homes Friday night. The victims, 2 men, ages 27 and 42. No word on what led up to the shooting. The violence then spilling into Saturday and turning deadly. Police say a 52-year-old man was shot and killed on Wilkins Avenue in southwest Baltimore. Then, just 3 hours later and a couple of miles away, another homicide. A man was found fatally shot on South Monastery Avenue. And on Sunday, a grim discovery in East Baltimore. Homicide detectives were called to East 20th Street to investigate after the body of a man was found burning near an alley. No word on how he was killed.
I just wanted to stop.
People here in Baltimore fed up with the violence. As it stands, homicides and non-fatal shootings remain up citywide compared to this time last year, with the latest statistics showing the biggest spike occurring in the city's northeastern district.
I think the fact that we are seeing brazen acts of violence.
Former Baltimore Police Deputy Commissioner Jason Johnson believes a lack of accountability is helping fuel this violence.
I think it's just a reflection, again, of the fact that there just does not seem to be accountability for people who are engaged in these acts of violence.
Johnson believes the likely new and incoming city state's attorney, Ivan Bates, will help the city change its course.
Hopefully, we're seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. We've got a new state's attorney who'll be taking office in just a few months. And, so there is hope for improvement.
Baltimore police have not yet announced any arrests in the case mentioned. As for the shooting that occurred here in South Baltimore, police say the victim, a 30-year-old man, no arrests have been made. Reporting in South Baltimore, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
The double shooting that injured a restaurant worker in Fells Point 3 weeks ago is now a homicide investigation. Baltimore police confirmed the second victim shot in that incident, Elijah Hooks, has died of his injuries. Now, Hooks and a woman were shot in the 700 block of South Broadway, just a block from Broadway Square. The Baltimore Police Department has not said what led up to the shooting. An $8,000 reward is being offered for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person responsible.
New tonight, a 17-year-old Glen Burnie high school student is in custody after police say he was found carrying a loaded handgun just off campus. The school's principal says the school was briefly put on lockdown because of the incident. It's not clear what the student intended to do with the gun. Today's arrest comes days after another student was arrested after a fight broke out in a hallway of the school. One student was stabbed during that fight.
A guilty plea in the murder of a Morgan State University student. That deadly shooting took place nearly a year ago. Last October, Barry Ransom was found shot in the parking lot of the Trader Joe's at the shops at Kenilworth in Towson. Days later, Kevin Sharp was arrested. Police say the 22-year-old had posted to Instagram he was trying to sell some items that investigators found were Ransom's belongings. This morning, Sharp pled guilty to first-degree murder.
Well, as we near November's general election, Fox 45 News is taking you beyond the podium. And one thing we have been covering closely is a big question on the ballot in Baltimore City, term limits. Maryland's governor already falls under a term limit, so Larry Hogan cannot run again, as we know. But looking at the most recent Goucher College poll from last month, if he could run again, Larry Hogan would fare well. 62% of Marylanders approve of the job Hogan is doing as governor. That includes even more support from Democrats than from Republicans. His highest approval rating throughout his tenure was 71%. That was earned in October of 2020.
Well, next month, as we mentioned, Baltimore voters will decide on term limits for city leaders. Question K would apply to the mayor, comptroller, city council president, and council members, limiting them to 2 four-year terms. Retired pastor and community activist Reverend Al Hathaway says he supports term limits.
When you look at the large cities in America, New York, Los Angeles, San Diego, San Antonio, Texas, they all have term limits because they understand that there's talent that's resident in communities and neighborhoods that need to be involved and engaged in the political process, and this allows them entry into it.
Term limits are also the subject of debate in Washington, where many lawmakers have spent decades in office and are hoping for more time.
Sinclair's chief political correspondent Scott Thuman goes beyond the podium, shows us both sides of the argument.
Even though fall brings change each year, it doesn't always hold true here on the Hill. This said to be the oldest Congress ever, bringing new life to the question, is it time for term limits?
Chuck Grassley, you're seeking an 8th term in the U.S. Senate. If you win, you'll be 95 at the end of that term. What do you say to Iowans who wonder whether you're up to the task?
I think the only thing I can do is tell you how I lead my life today. I go to bed at 9, get up at 4, run 2 miles, get to the office by 6.
Grassley's held a seat in Washington since 1975. Across the aisle, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, predicted to win again, is 82. She's been here since 1987.
I am running for re-election to Congress and respectfully seek your support.
Critics argue the longer they're in, the more removed they are from voters' real-life struggles, and new blood would mean new energy.
There is a chance to break up patterns of corruption in which people are constantly looking for money for their re-election. Well, if they know that their term is going to end at some point, maybe they won't spend their last term doing nothing but raising money for re-election.
And it's not just one party pushing the idea of imposing a rule to limit how long someone can serve, nor is the idea just targeting Congress. After the Supreme Court's controversial ruling on abortion, many said the justices are out of touch and should be out of power. Polling showed 85% of Democrats and 68% of Republicans thought so. But if you constantly replace those familiar faces in Washington, don't you also lose their know-how?
A lot of them will say, my first 4 years here, I didn't know how to get anything done. And if you limit our terms to 8 years, that means half the people here are going to be in that beginner learning stage.
He says politics could become even more polarizing if the names on the ballot look unfamiliar. Voters could be more prone to just picking a party. At the Capitol Hill Bureau, Scott Thuman, Fox 45 News.
Well, we want to know what you think. Should there be term limits for elected officials? So far, 88% of voters say yes. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote and click on the Pulse tab to weigh in.
Well, the Washington Post editorial board has endorsed Republican Barry Glassman in Maryland's comptroller race. The Post says one-party rule in any state is a recipe for, quote, immoderation and poor governance. And Glassman is the Republican with the best chance of winning a race for a major office at the state level. Now, Glassman's challenger, Democrat Brooke Learman, has earned a few major endorsements herself. Baltimore County Johnny Olszewski, Congressman John Sarbanes, and the Baltimore Sun have all endorsed Learman.
Well, when it comes to the race for governor, Republican candidate Dan Cox is getting support from a familiar name. Former President Donald Trump held a fundraiser for Cox at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida today. The event is advertised as a private cocktail reception. It costs nearly $2,000 per person to attend. A photo with Cox and Trump cost $25,000. Right now, Cox trails Democrat Wes Moore in fundraising 10-1. One political expert tells Fox 45 News he doesn't think today's event will be enough to give Cox the edge he needs.
If he's going to move the needle, maybe he raises a little bit of money and can go on TV. But it's not, the people who already support President Trump, they're already going to be with Dan Cox. Maryland is more a blue state, and you have a lot of independents where that type of stuff does not appeal to your average mainstream voter. You look how well Joe Biden did here in 2020, where there was no real impact at all for the MAGA movement.
The latest Goucher poll shows Moore leads Cox by more than 300 points. Fox 45 News reached out to Cox campaign for comment. I think it was 30 points. Sorry, apologize. But we have not heard back from Cox campaign.
Now, if you'd like to pre-register to vote in Maryland or make sure your voter registration information is up to date, you can do that. State election leaders say that you have to do so by tomorrow. You can make those changes one of three ways: online at elections.maryland.gov, mailing a paper application to your county board of elections, or completing an in-person application at your local board of elections office. You can also register to vote in person on Election Day or at an early voting center. Well, be sure to check out the Fox 45 voter guide for all of our reporting on the upcoming general election. Just head to our website, foxbaltimore.com/vote2022.
President Biden boasting about the strength of the American economy over an ice cream cone. Experts and the American public disagree.
And the bus stop forecast going to be a chilly one tomorrow, almost feeling like a change in seasons. Temperatures starting near 40, only working to the 50s. I'm going to let you know how long this lasts and where you might see a snowflake or two. It's up in my Weather Authority forecast.
Well, take a look at this. There is snow on the pumpkins in part of the Midwest. Wisconsin on the left side of your screen, Minnesota on the right. Well, most of our area probably won't see snow in the coming days, although Jonathan has mentioned something about it. Here it is. There's a chance as temperatures drop. Really? Really?
Yeah, you're saying there's a chance, right? and there is a chance. It's about a 10% chance, not a huge chance at all. But
that's a chance.
But it's a chance, and there could be a flake in the forecast here or there. We've had snow as close as what? Well, it will be northern Pennsylvania, western New York. Even today, Indiana had some snow. Chicago in the past couple of days seeing its first snowfall. We're just dealing with rain for now. Salisbury eastbound to Ocean City actually had some strong storms, as our latest weather maker, a cold front passed through here. That now continues to move east, clearing skies gradually move in. And with this, boy, some cold air. Look at all these light blues. That's frost advisories, freeze warnings in this area in purple as close as Allegheny County in Maryland. And next couple of nights, we may start edging some of those closer to the 95 corridor. Look at all that rain and snow. There's that northern Indiana snow, as well as the snow up toward Michigan and Wisconsin. So really, this has been relegated more so towards the Great Lakes, and it's kind of lake-enhanced and lake-effect snow that's aided by this storm system that's dragged in now colder air for us. And mainly for tomorrow, it's just going to be kind of blustery and chillier. But a couple of these rain bands slash rain snow mix bands, those could try to kind of edge up and over the Appalachians. And usually computer models don't do a great job of picking those up, especially since they're very scant and moisture starved. But if we see a couple make it close enough, there could potentially be a flake or a grapple pellet, as we call it, a hail pellet, or maybe even just a sprinkle across the area tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening. So we'll show you that in a second. But 54 now, winds out of the west-northwest at 5 miles an hour. Beautiful look there at the Toyota East Inner Harbor Skycam. Doesn't feel great, though. Temperatures of the 40s to near 50, even colder yet. Look at Cleveland, Pittsburgh, right around 40, even some upper 30s right now. Overnight, the colder air moves in for us. Look at this. By tomorrow morning, mid to upper 30s to near 40. And here's what I'm talking about. Tomorrow afternoon, as high temperatures only make it to the low and mid 50s, see a couple of these little spots of green way down there toward Calvert County, kind of almost off the map. Those could be almost anywhere. That's kind of remnants of lake effect rain and snow shower bands. So again, there's an outside chance we could see some of this. And if you get a flake, it'd be mainly north and west and over the higher elevations. But it's something to watch. 40 degrees, mostly cloudy skies for tonight. Tomorrow, 54, wind-blown, spritz-sore, maybe a flake here or there. Otherwise, some partial sun. Tuesday, Wednesday, chilly days, some frost in the morning. Wednesday, Thursday morning, Friday, 66. Ravens game looking good, 71 degrees, some autumn beauty. And we are near peak in terms of our colors. Catch them this weekend, and great-looking day, hour by hour, for the Ravens game against Cleveland.
Topping consumer news now, President Biden insisting the U.S. economy is in great shape as an increasing number of experts and the American public seem to disagree. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has more from Washington.
Great to see you guys.
President Joe Biden boasting about the U.S. economy with a mouthful of ice cream.
Our economy is strong as hell.
His optimism not in line with what many economists are saying.
The three largest economies, the United States, China, and the euro area, will continue to stall. In short, the worst is yet to come, and for many people, 2023 will feel like a recession.
Biden's critics quick to pile on, some calling his statement tone deaf as rising prices continue to weigh on American budgets. Inflation remains high. Consumer prices rose 8.2% year over year. As temperatures drop heading into winter, federal energy forecasters predicting it will cost around 28% more to heat your home this year compared to last.
People who buy things like oil, heating oil, diesel, kerosene, they're going to see the highest prices by far that they've ever witnessed.
A new Fox News poll shows around 2/3 of voters disapprove of Biden's handling of the economy. No matter how strong the president says the American economy is, more on both sides, including former Obama economic advisor Austin Goolsbee, are uttering the dreaded R word.
I'd say recession's absolutely a real possibility.
Recession fears dampening the holiday shopping season before it even begins. This year, small business owners are hiring less seasonal workers, and the majority of owners report they expect to make less profit this season than they did last year. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
The White House officially launches the Student Loan Forgiveness Application website. The website available at studentaid.gov. President Biden describing it as easy and fast. He calls today's launch a game changer for millions of Americans. President Biden says the beta testing site has already handled more than 8 million applications without a glitch.
as millions of people fill out the application, we're going to make sure the system continues to work as smoothly as possible so that we can deliver student loan relief for millions of Americans as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
President Biden also acknowledges there is litigation underway to try and block the repayment program. The Job Creators Network is one of the organizations that filed a lawsuit against the Biden administration. The group's chief legal officer says their suit focuses on the process the government used to go through with the program.
Literally, this was a plan crafted, behind closed doors with no public input whatsoever, which is contrary to how any regulation, any program of this size needs to be developed under the law.
In August, President Biden announced his decision to cancel up to $10,000 in student loan debt for those making less than $125,000 a year. Eligible borrowers who were also Pell Grant recipients could get as much as $20,000 in relief.
When you're afraid of both the cops and the robbers, you're essentially paralyzed.
20 years after an entire family was killed for speaking to police, a look at the so-called stop snitching culture in Baltimore that endures to this day. The big business of politics, Nike's owner hedging his bets in hopes of influencing who becomes the next governor of Oregon, the motivation behind backing two candidates. And at the top of the hour, a judge throws out an exonerated man's case against the city. The evidence that was deemed fabricated puts a spotlight on prosecutors who have been working to overturn past convictions. It was another disappointing week for the Ravens, the team continuing to blow big leads late in games. Baltimore had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, but could not hold on after a pair of turnovers in the final minutes allowed the Giants to take the lead, then close out the game. The Ravens now 3-3 despite leading late in almost every game this season. Coach Harbaugh says the entire staff is taking responsibility, and it's time to push forward and reach their potential.
I'm really confident that our guys are going to take to heart the lessons, coaches and players, and these are the things that are going to forge us going forward and going to make us a team that we can become. I mean, it's very obvious to me. I think when you watch the tape, all the players, all the coaches, what we're capable of. Let's go. Let's have a sense of urgency. I know our players feel the same way, and that's how we'll be approaching it this week.
Well, don't miss this week's instant reaction to another double-digit blown lead and a look ahead to the Browns coming to town this Sunday. Download the Flock on Fox 45 podcast. Search Fox 45 on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon podcast platforms. Well, the Ravens lost, not stopping people from showing off their purple pride. Look at this. Monica sent us these pictures of her amazing Ravens makeup. I wonder if she did this on her own. Oh, she did. She painted half her face to look like the Ravens logo. And I love the purple on the other half. Nice job, Monica. We got to win for that at some point here. We'll show your purple pride this season. You can send your pictures, your videos to our website, foxbaltimore.com/chime in, or use our Fox 45 mobile app. Just click the Explore tab, then chime in. A pack of puppies taking over BWI tonight, what those dogs were learning and their true mission. Plus, Larry Hogan won't endorse a candidate for governor, but he is backing a Republican in one statewide race. The announcement in the new ad that just dropped. Well, a group of puppies continued their education today at BWI. The group Guiding Eyes for the Blind provides guide dogs to people with vision loss and impairment at no cost to the recipient. Today, some future guide dogs learned the airport, their way around for the very first time.
It gives them a really good opportunity to experience the different sights, smells, sounds of the airport. It also gives them the opportunity to work through TSA because a lot of our dogs won't have that opportunity while they're with us. So kind of to go through security, get that pat down, get that experience hearing the beeping, being touched by a TSA security clerk, all that kind of stuff.
They are just the best dogs. He was like, hey, lady, stop talking. Give me my treat. The puppies live with volunteers while they train for 14 to 16 months before they go back to the Guiding Eyes New York campus to begin their formal training.
And it was heartening to see that BPD didn't intervene.
The prominent judge who called saying he was harassed by squeegee kids and why officers are being praised for their handling of what happened this weekend. A federal ruling calls into question city prosecutors' efforts to overturn convictions for suspects they believe were wrongfully locked up. The evidence, a judge says, was fabricated. And the Ravens hope to rebound after losing a big lead. Why Coach John Harbaugh says it's different this time.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News Late Edition.
Thank you for staying with Fox 45 News. I'm Kai Jackson. The squeegee crisis in Baltimore takes a new turn when Maryland's chief district judge, the man who oversees the implementation of the consent decree, says he was harassed at an intersection. Now, in this case, the judge called police. Keith Daniels has details on what led to that call and how thin police resources have been stretched.
Well, police say the two squeegee kids allegedly involved in this incident are two men in their 20s. And tonight, again, squeegee workers accused of harassing a motorist, this time a judge. At the corner of Mount Royal Terrace and North Avenue, an intersection usually busy with squeegee kids. But on this day, rainy weather cleared the corner of the young workers who wash windows for tips. But Sunday afternoon, squeegee kids and a judge converge. According to a police report, Judge James Bradar, who's overseeing the consent decree aimed at rehabilitating the Baltimore Police Department after years of civil rights violations, claims he was harassed by the squeegee kids. He and his wife stopped at the intersection when they were approached by two men. Bradar told police that the young men refused to back away when told not to wash his windows. According to the report, that's when the squeegee kids wrote "racist" in soap suds on the car window, then gave the couple the middle finger and spat on the car. Bradar called police. Sean Kennedy,
The squeegee workers are absolutely a nuisance.
Of the Maryland Public Policy Institute, says while the squeegee kids may be notorious for being a nuisance for some, even violently dangerous in some instances, Kennedy calls the judge's response problematic at best.
This judge is the one overseeing the consent decree. It's just somewhat surprising that he thinks that him being harassed is worthy of police response, while so many other crimes, so many other police enforcement activities are being hampered under his watch.
The incident first reported by the Baltimore Banner. The judge reported no damage done to his vehicle, no assault. Still, according to the police report, two officers responded. The squeegee workers, given a warning, told to, quote, cease further squeegee-related activity at the location.
These squeegee workers targeted a high-profile individual who asked for special treatment, and it was heartening to see that BPD didn't intervene here and do anything more than they would have done for any other citizen, which is zilch.
Well, a spokesperson for the judge confirmed the incident but declined to comment. Reporting tonight, Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
There have been more than 36 calls about that one intersection since September 13th, according to police data obtained by Fox 45 News. Now, as we've reported, there are two statutes that could apply in this case. Now, one states you can't go into a roadway to seek money or bribe. Another targets what's known as aggressive soliciting. That's defined by actions like intentionally blocking a driver, using obscene language, or intimidation. Mayor Brandon Scott has been clear that he views washing windshields for money as protected as free speech. The likely incoming city state's attorney disagrees, saying those laws can be enforced.
They can't be there. It's not safe for the squeegee workers. It's not safe for the citizens. My job is to enforce the law. Stepping off that sidewalk, going in and out of traffic is illegal. And as far as I'm concerned, we cannot do that.
You can see Mackenzie Frost's full interview, including how Ivan Bates plans to pursue enforcement, on foxbaltimore.com. Tonight, a federal judge is joining a growing list of men and women on the bench criticizing the city state's attorney's office, issuing an opinion that questions the due diligence of the prosecutors seeking to exonerate those who might have been wrongfully convicted. Jeff Abel has a closer look at what a judge concluded was fabricated.
Well, the information comes from a federal judge who dismissed the man's civil suit against the city and who raised serious questions about investigations at the state's attorney's office. Just how deep do prosecutors go before declaring an inmate innocent?
Oh, there he is. Oh, there he is, guys.
It was 4 years ago when Jerome Johnson walked out of the courthouse a free man. He had spent 30 years in prison for murder, but prosecutors from the state's attorney's office revealed he'd been wrongly accused and asked the court to set him free.
I would like to thank everybody that participated in the investigation. Also, I would like to thank Mr. Marilyn Mosey for bringing the integrity unit to the state's attorney.
So on behalf of the criminal justice system, I must tell you I apologize to you and your family for the pain that you've endured because of this wrongful conviction.
After his release, Johnson slapped the city with a federal lawsuit, accusing the police department of misconduct and asking for millions in damages. But in a decision today, the federal judge dismissed Johnson's lawsuit, saying his accusations have a lot of smoke but no fire. In fact, the judge ruled that Johnson had fabricated at least 2 affidavits in the case. One of them was used to convince prosecutors of his innocence. The affidavit is a forgery, the judge wrote, and the plaintiff's claim that he did not know the falsity of it rings hollow. The judge also found prosecutors had made other conclusions in the case, which the actual evidence did not support. Johnson is one of 11 men now exonerated by the state's attorney's conviction integrity unit. Last year, a federal judge threw out a civil lawsuit filed by another exonerated defendant, Tony DeWitt, determining that it, too, was based on forged evidence and witness intimidation.
Are my clients confident that this demonstrates innocence? No, they're not, because they still have questions about innocence.
The questions come after last week's dismissal of the murder conviction of Adnan Syed. The same prosecutors cite new evidence which proves his innocence. However, the attorney representing the victim's family in the case insists victims no longer have a voice.
What it feels like from a layperson's perspective is I've had this lawyer for 23 years, the state's attorney, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, they're no longer my attorney, and they're acting in ways that I don't perceive to be align with me, and I don't understand why.
Now, in regards to the dismissal of the Jerome Johnson civil case, a city spokeswoman writes in a statement tonight that while cases like this are difficult, it is important to remember that the decision of the state's attorney, or any prosecutor for that matter, to vacate a conviction does not equate to a civil liability on the part of the BPD or the city. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
20 years after one of Baltimore's most infamous revenge murders, a look back at the Dawson family murders and a lack of witness protection. Plus, new COVID-19 variants were expected, but the effect of the new mutations is concerning. The treatments that could be outdated if a new strain takes hold.
And the morning rush is a lot colder one. Temperature is going to be settling down to around 40. Could feel more like the 30s. I'll let you know where you could see a flake tomorrow, perhaps. That's up in my Weather Authority forecast, hour by hour.
Here's a look at today's top trending stories. Number one, a teenager is arrested near Glen Burnie High School and said to have been carrying a loaded handgun. Police say a school resource officer stopped the teen and another young man just off campus, briefly putting the school on lockdown this afternoon. The principal alerted parents in a letter saying the teen who was arrested is a senior at the school. It's the second big police presence there in less than a week. Last Wednesday, a student was stabbed in a fight. Number two, this week marks 20 years since the Dawson killings, a dark moment in Baltimore history and history of the country, in fact. In October of 2002, Carnell and Angela Dawson and their 5 children were killed after she reported drug activity in the neighborhood. Their home was firebombed. Fox 45 News over the years has since reported on the ongoing stop snitching culture in Baltimore. Former FBI agent Tyrone Powers says it endures today.
In terms of people not necessarily engaging the police then with the same issues we were dealing with now. So their question becomes, what if I participate in helping the police resolve the crime in terms of murder, robbery, and then I become a victim? Then even my participation, I won't get to see the results of my participation because I will be the next victim. And that has always been a dilemma.
On FoxBaltimore.com, you can see more from our interview with Dr. Powers, including what it would take to bring witnesses forward. Next on the late edition, Nike's founder backing 2 candidates in the same race. The reason he's putting money on multiple candidates. And cutting the ribbon on a local pond. How much water Ellicott City leaders say it will divert if Main Street becomes flooded. Governor Larry Hogan says he won't support the Republican nominee for Governor Dan Cox, but he is backing the GOP nominee for Comptroller Barry Glassman.
I've been in the middle a long time.
Me too. That's why I'm running for Comptroller.
Governor Hogan.
Well, the release of the ad follows a recent endorsement of the Harford County executive by the Washington Post for Glassman. The Baltimore Sun has endorsed Democrat Brooke Learman. The two candidates will participate in a state bar association Goucher College forum Tuesday morning. Meanwhile, Governor Hogan's popularity remains strong in his lame duck year. Looking at the most recent Goucher College poll from last month, his approval rating has a significant majority, with 60% overall approval, with more support from Democrats than Republicans. His highest approval rating throughout his governorship was 71% in October of 2020. Nike co-founder Phil Knight is trying to prevent Democrats from holding on to Oregon's gubernatorial seat. Knight is pouring funds into the campaigns of both Republican candidate Christine Drazan and independent candidate Betsy Johnson. Both are running against Democrat Tina Kotek, former Oregon Speaker of the House. Knight described himself as, quote, anti-Tina to the New York Times on Saturday. Oregon has not elected a Republican governor since 1982. A poll data from 538 shows Drazan with a slight lead over Kotek. The United Nations reports 7 million people have fled Venezuela since 2015, 500,000 coming to the United States. The Biden administration says it will allow for 24,000 to stay, but it's now sending others back to Mexico using the pandemic-era policy known as Title 42. National correspondent Christine Frizzell has more.
On immigration policy, a pendulum swing by the Biden administration, now using Title 42, the pandemic-era public health policy, to expel Venezuelan migrants arriving at the southern border in record numbers. A policy his own Justice Department is fighting against, and after President Biden said this.
Is the pandemic over?
The pandemic is over.
They are fleeing a country in turmoil with a rise in violence and a lack of food and housing, often winding up in El Paso, Texas, where the city's Democratic mayor has bused about 10,000 to New York City, a practice leaders say will end once their challenges do. Meanwhile, Mayor Eric Adams has declared a state of emergency. These tents erected to help house them for now.
This is unsustainable. The city is going to run out of funding for other priorities.
It's a sentiment leaders from border states say they've been experiencing for years.
The number one issue, bar none, is a wide open border, exposing them to the dangers of fentanyl pouring into communities, people dying, empowered cartels, migrants dying on ranches. It is absolutely an abomination.
He and others say they're worried about crime as well. 3 undocumented immigrants were arrested just last week in El Paso in connection with a murder there in September. Meanwhile, immigrant advocates say Congress could deal with this today by updating immigration laws. But until they do, current laws should be followed.
Under the current administration, Congress allows for asylum, and we should follow the law. And we should stop trying to skirt the law because we're scared that there's a large number of people who may be appearing to apply for asylum.
The debate over the best policy now fully entrenched in politics. A New York Times Siena poll finding immigration tied with abortion as the 3rd most important issue for voters this midterm election, following the economy and inflation. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzell.
A new stormwater pond in Ellicott City could help save it from more catastrophic flooding in the future. Officials from the state and Howard County cut the ribbon for a new flood pond to prevent severe flooding like the disaster in 2018. It was the 3rd in a 7-year span. It would hold enough stormwater to cover a football field 13 feet deep. Now, this is just part of the water mitigation plan to prevent repeats of the devastating floods we saw rolling down Main Street. Rain fell late this afternoon, but made way just in time to provide a spectacular sunset over the harbor. This was around 6:30. Jonathan joins us now with some cold air moving in. Jonathan?
Yeah, and right there, what you see in the picture, Kai, that's the back edge of our cold front and some of the strong storms that actually came over portions of the eastern shore. Still the leftovers of those showers from Seaford, Delaware, back to Salisbury. Now, here in Baltimore, those long gone. Continuing to make the move eastbound, Cambridge, all the way down to Ocean City. Got some rowdy, even severe weather down that way. Here, we're under mainly clear skies. Now, Easton, you might be still seeing some clouds. Everybody else, pretty good. And then look out to the west. Freeze warnings. This is the next topic du jour, that's going to be moving our way. Freeze warnings, and in this lighter blue, those are frost advisories all the way down to Richmond, where they had some supercell thunderstorms in their neck of the woods earlier on today. And then take a look. It's a change in season. Snow falling Fort Wayne, Indiana, all the way up to Chicago, getting some snow earlier on, and then some snow all the way up, and I mean accumulating snow, up to a foot of snow or so up into portions of northern Michigan. And now for us, the rain, the cold front, the latest weather maker, it's moving east. We're getting into mainly colder and clearing conditions. Some of the chilliest air, at least in terms of kind of the bulk of this stuff, coming over the next couple of days that we've seen thus far this season. And we could potentially even see a sprinkle or, dare I say, a snow flurry mixed in with some of this stuff. Notice most of it, the lion's share, way up toward Detroit, western New York, western northern Pennsylvania, all the way up again into the upper Midwest. But here, if a little of that moisture can kind of scamper over the Appalachian Mountains tomorrow, which it's not out of the question, it could. Take a look at the pattern recognition here. We could see a sprinkle or maybe, again, a wet flake. So, Mile 1 Task Cam right now, it's clear. 51 degrees, winds into the west-northwest at 7. What you're going to wake up to tomorrow morning is sweater and jacket weather. Temperatures all in the 40s to right around 50 degrees, except right near the bay where the bay waters are warmer. Keep you a little more insulated at 58 now at Annapolis. But all these temperatures, they're running 12 to 20 degrees colder than just 24 hours ago. That latest weather maker, a cold front, continues to push east. Boston, the only leftover warmer spot, and that will be evicted out to the east as that chillier air moves in. Take a look at the future scan. Some extra clouds overnight. This showing maybe a sprinkle here or there, but I think for the most part that's done. Look at these temperatures settling into the 30s to near 40. This is a quick push of cold air after 71 today. No more of that tomorrow. Sunshine giving way to some patchy afternoon clouds. And you take a look here. There's that one little sprinkle down towards St. Mary's County and maybe Calvert County. That's pretty much what this computer model is putting out for leftovers of any lake effect banding coming down. That could be almost anywhere tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening. With those temperatures dropping down into the 40s, maybe even a couple of upper 30s. Tomorrow afternoon, maybe into tomorrow evening, there could be a stray sprinkle again, maybe a little bit of grapple or, you know, we're talking soft hail here, or maybe even a wet flake. Otherwise, it's going to feel colder than it is with a gusty breeze. And early tomorrow morning, be dressed for temperatures in the 30s, feeling like the 40s pretty much all day tomorrow. 40, mostly cloudy. For tonight, a sprinkle, maybe a flake tomorrow. Don't count on it. 54 degrees. It's only about a 10% chance there. Then blustery, chilly on Wednesday. Some frosty mornings coming. Wednesday morning, Thursday morning, maybe even Friday morning. Then warming up nicely in time for the Ravens game.
Several newer variants now are getting tougher for treatments to tackle. I'm Liz Bonus. We're going to explain what you need to know and how to protect potentially against them. It is just ahead.
New COVID variants are beginning to take hold in the U.S. and overseas, and tonight there are signs those mutations could make it resistant to some treatments. Medical reporter Liz Bonus has the story.
Hey there, everybody. Several of these newer variants being tracked here and across the globe are raising new concerns because they appear to be resistant to certain treatments we now use to fight this virus. The CDC has been tracking these variants around the globe. Two of those now on the rise that appear to have this treatment-resistant quality include BQ.1.1 and XBB. BQ.1.1 now accounts for 1 in 10 cases of newly diagnosed patients in the United States. XBB is on the rise in Singapore and Hong Kong. It spread so quickly that in one day they went from nearly 5,000 cases to almost 12,000. Both of these have the potential to evade antibodies from what are called monoclonal therapies. This means a whole category of drugs we currently use to keep patients from getting severely ill from COVID-19 won't work.
There's a lot of worries about that therapy.
Dr. Thomas Lamar told me he does expect that other therapies will work against these, such as the antiviral Paxlovid.
But for the patients who cannot receive those, the monoclonal antibodies have really been super helpful.
Dr. Lamar says the bivalent booster is still your best protection against these. It is likely to be at least partially effective against these newer variants because they appear to be descendants of Omicron, which the new shot does help your body fight. Really what this tells us is we're likely going to need not just a booster this year, but one in 2023 and beyond, much like the annual flu shot. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus. Now back to you.
John Means throwing for the first time since this April outing. See the big step in his Tommy John recovery. Plus, John Harbaugh's message to the team after another double-digit collapse and repeated mistakes. Another disappointing week for the Baltimore Ravens. The team blew another big lead late in the game. Baltimore had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, but couldn't hold on. A pair of turnovers in the final minutes allowed the Giants to take the lead and close out the game. The Ravens now 3-3 despite leading late in almost every game this season. Coach Harbaugh says the entire staff is taking responsibility.
I'm really confident that our guys are going to take to heart the lessons, coaches and players. And these are the things that are going to forge us going forward and going to make us a team that we can become. I mean, it's very obvious to me. I think when you watch the tape, all the players, all the coaches, what we're capable of. Let's go. Let's have a sense of urgency. I know our players feel the same way, and that's how we'll be approaching it this week.
Well, don't miss this week's instant reaction to another double-digit blown lead and a look ahead to the Browns coming to town this Sunday. Download the Flock on Fox 45 podcast. Search Fox 45 on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon podcast platforms. Well, this time of year, the Orioles generally don't make big headlines, but after the first winning season in 5 years, there's optimism heading into 2023. And here's some more good news. John Means posted this tweet with a simple caption, "Day one throwing with a check mark." The O's ace hasn't thrown since undergoing season-ending Tommy John surgery back in April. It's too early to put a timetable on his return, according to the O's, but it certainly is encouraging. Well, one more baseball note for you. Tonight's win-or-go-home playoff game between the Cleveland Guardians and New York Yankees was postponed due to rain. They will play tomorrow afternoon. The winner faces the Houston Astros for a chance to go to the World Series. Well, finally tonight, a pack of puppies at BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport this evening, and it's all part of a higher calling for the pups. The group Guiding Eyes for the Blind provides guide dogs to people with vision loss and impairment at no cost to the recipient. The newest class of guide dogs was in session, learning about airports, security, and also crowds. The puppies live with volunteers while they train for 14 to 16 months before they go back to a New York campus to begin their final training. Good dogs. Well, that'll do us for the late edition. I'm Kai Jackson. Thank you for watching. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.